afternoon. Welcome to Get Real Food Kitchen. Today we're going to make a broth from scratch. Show you the kinds of things that you can use in this vegetable broth. I have here some parsley that at one point lost its life, but when I put it in water it came back to life. So that's beautiful to use. And here I have a leek end. And the trick to cleaning these leeks is in your sink, use the sprayer to spray out the hairs. We have pieces of leeks here that were at one point looked like they couldn't be used in a dish, that people would actually see what was there. And we have carrot peelings. We have the outer edge of onions and the onion tops and roots. We have celery that couldn't be used because it wouldn't hold up in a salad. So this recipe calls for 5½ cups of vegetables. This is a 7-cup bowl. So I am going to pack as many vegetables as I can into this bowl. And the amount of vegetables that is on this recipe is an approximate amount. And actually, if you have a family, I'm going to suggest that you double the recipe. What the recipe is going to yield is 2/3 to 3/4 gallon of broth. And once you've learned how to make this broth, you're going to go through that fairly quickly. So I have 2/3 gallon of cold water that I'm going to put the vegetables into. So this brings my gallon pan almost full. And I'm going to add my 1 tablespoon of Vegisol, which is a wonderful product to bring flavor and salt to a soup recipe. Just sprinkling that on top. And I'm going to put a little bit of cracked pepper in this. So when you're thinking about what kinds of things you want in your broth, you'll think about what you want to actually use it for. If you're making a chicken vegetable soup, you might want to use Italian seasoning. And actually, one very sweet treat is to put a little bit of a sweet potato into the broth towards the end of its cooking time. And that will sweeten up the broth. Now you recognize that with the skins of the onion, the one reason why you're using it is that it'll give you a nice, rich flavor. I'm going to turn it on and bring it to a boil. I'm going to cover it because boiling something with a lid on means that you're going to save 30% of your time. It boils 30% faster. So we're just going to let it boil. And if you just take a minute to look at the broth and see how beautiful the colors are together. And just know that that's your nutrition. It's to a boil. Turn it down and let it simmer for at least an hour and a half, up to 4 hours. The longer the better. Has been on a simmer for 3 hours. And when we are cooking it that long, what you want to do is be careful, because even with a tight lid, the water is going to diminish. So you want to continue to top it off with water to where you're getting 2/3 of a gallon or 3/4 of a gallon. So this broth has been cooking for quite some time, and it's ready to be strained. Once the broth is cooled, you want to strain it. So I've set up here a large container that I will be pouring the vegetables through. So I'm just going to get a good share of the broth off. And then I'm going to let the vegetables fall into the strainer. You notice that I've let this cool before I'm doing it. Let it drain. And now this is ready for the compost. One more thing I want to show before we finish this little video is about that the broths, depending on how well you clean the vegetables, the broth sometimes has some sediment in the bottom of the container. So when it comes to using it, you want to pour gently so that and hold the container still so that the sediment is allowed to settle in the bottom of the container, and you can pour off the top delicious broth, and you're left with sediment in the bottom of the container, which you can dump down the sink or use as compost.